Good evening, everyone. I'm Bridget Dixon. I'm the President and CEO of the Santa Fe Chamber of Commerce. And in collaboration with the Santa Fe Housing Action Coalition, I welcome you to join us this evening for our Mayoral Candidate Forum. Thank you for being here. The Santa Fe Chamber of Commerce serves as the voice of business in Santa Fe by representing local businesses and advocating on economic issues at the city level. Our lobbying efforts, government affairs, are always business-centered and never endorse a particular candidate. This election is more important than ever. Our business community has faced many challenges over the last year and a half. And tonight, we're going to hear from our candidates some of those solutions to the challenges our business community has been facing, such as broadband, staffing issues across the board, public safety, zoning, the permanent processes, and regulatory as well. And of course, the future of our Midtown district. So we're really excited to have them join us this evening. The Santa Fe Chamber of Commerce and the Santa Fe Action Housing Coalition are both nonprofit organizations. And hosting this event is a service to our business community. Now, we wouldn't be able to host this event if it wasn't for the support of our sponsors, so I'd like to take a moment to recognize them. So first of all, a big thank you to the Lenzik Theater for providing our venue for us this evening. P&M, Positive Energy, Coca-Cola, Paper Tiger, and Security Asset Solutions. So a big round of applause for these sponsors that provided this free event for you this evening. Now, before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to introduce our co-host, and also who will be hosting an event tomorrow evening, and that's Michael Barrio. He's the Executive Director for the Santa Fe Action Housing Coalition.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. And as Bridget said, this is a very important election, as they all are. But coming out of COVID, we feel like this is incredibly important, even more than it was before. So we're incredibly grateful to have all of you here tonight with us. And as Bridget said, we'll be focusing on economic and business issues this evening, but please remember to register for tomorrow night's event, which will focus explicitly on housing. So we can't wait to have you back tomorrow night for that. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that, Michael. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this started. I'd like to start out by introducing tonight's moderator, and I'd like him to join us on the stage right now. That's Matthew Jaramillo. He's our incoming chair of the Santa Fe Chamber of Commerce. He heads up the Santa Fe Chamber of Commerce Public Policy Committee, and he's with P&M. Michael, come out and join us.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for being here. As a 16th generation Northern New Mexican, I'm so excited that we have three wonderful candidates to see who's going to be our new mayor to bring Santa Fe into this next 4 years. So I really want to give them a round of applause as we introduce them all. First, we have our City Councilor, Joanne V. Hill-Koppler. Our Mayor, Alan Weber. And let me remind everyone, a little decorum this evening. We're not going to boo, we're not going to applaud, we're going to have a nice discussion, we're going to be cordial, and let's pay the respects to our folks and thank them for being here. And then last but not least, Alexis Martinez-Johnson. Thank you all for being here. So a little bit of the housekeeping rules on how this evening's going to work. It's going to be a discussion. It's not going to be a debate. And really, we're going to hear on what's important related to the business side of Santa Fe. As Michael and Bridget had mentioned, tomorrow is strictly going to be related to housing, so we're going to skew a little bit away from that this evening. And a lot of our questions this evening came from membership and surveys through all of you in the community to really find out at the heartbeat what the business community needs in leadership, especially from the mayoral office. So we'll roughly go anywhere from 6 to 9 questions depending on time. Each candidate will have 5 minutes to introduce themselves, talk about their platform, and really let all of you know who they are so you get an idea of really what they stand for. Then when we go into the questions, each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question. and there will be no time for rebuttal. And once we go through all three, we'll start with the next question. And depending on the time restrictions, we'll have 5-minute closing at the end, and then we'll have hopefully a better idea of these three wonderful people in front of us on what decision you all want to make and who's going to lead Santa Fe into its next 4 years. So, Counselor, why don't you go first? Why don't you tell us about yourself in about 5 minutes or less?
Thank you. I could actually take an hour, but you know that's not allowed. But anyway, my name is Joanne Behill-Koppler, and I am a city councilor. I am running for mayor of this city of Santa Fe, which is home to all of us, and we care very deeply about it, as do I. I want to tell you that I think Santa Fe is in desperate need of change. That's why I'm running. I want to make sure that we get our fiscal and accountability responsibilities in order. I want to make sure that we mend our relationships where everyone is valued and our traditions and our culture is valued. I want to unite our city. I also want to clean up the city. We need desperately to pay attention to where we live. And we need to make sure that this city looks just as beautiful downtown as it does on Airport Road and south. That's my vision. So I am very concerned about our city's audit, our city's financial accountability, and I know I can help. I know I can put a solid team together that will address our deficiencies. Today's audit came out, and it's not a pretty picture, and I'll let you all decide for yourselves. We may talk more about that today. But nevertheless, I have the skills, and I know I can hire people, because that's my background too. I can hire the best qualified people to run the ship with my guidance, with the guidance of a good qualified city manager, and we lead from there. I want to bring accountability back to our city. We need to make sure that we have good customer service, that every job is important, that the managers that are in charge treat employees equitably, fairly, and teach them and I guess motivate them, lead them to really care about the city and help us all reach the same goals. The last thing, well, not quite the last thing, but I'm very concerned about affordable housing, and I have a lot of experience in real estate, in housing, and such, and so I know I can work on that. I know I can bring it to fruition. And I think it's time that we stop talking about it and start doing it. That's what I want in my administration. And then the next thing is I want to work with small businesses and businesses all across the city so that we can create a plan of action with all of these stakeholders and move the city forward into a great economic base. I'll tell you a bit about myself. I have a master's degree in public administration. I have had 25 years of very successful, highly statured jobs in public service. I taught for UNM in public administration, and of course, I'm a city councilor. I feel like I have the skills, what it takes, and I have the drive, I have the ambition. I was born here, raised here, I care about my city, and that's why I want to give back. I know I can do this job, and I ask for your support for mayor of the city of Santa Fe. Thank you.
Mayor Weber.
Thank you, Matt. And thank you to the Chamber, thank you to the Housing Coalition for organizing this. It takes a great deal of work to put together programs like this tonight and one tomorrow night. And it's a great service to our community. Thank you to everybody who is here tonight. And if you are watching or listening on streaming media, thank you for checking out this debate. This is where you learn about the candidates, and this is where you make up your mind about the future of Santa Fe. I also want to thank my opponents, my rivals, for being up here tonight. It takes a great deal of work to run for this job, and while we may disagree on policies and programs, in fact, I know we do, we agree on one thing, and that is we love this city. We care deeply about Santa Fe, and we care deeply about its future, and so as a team of rivals, we are all here because of our deep commitment to Santa Fe's future. That said, I think it's fair to say that what you will hear tonight are very different versions about where the city has been, where we are now, and where we're going. I know that over the last 3.5 years as mayor, I've faced a lot of challenges. I'm the first full-time mayor in the city's history. And coming into that role, we had to blaze a lot of new trails. We tried new things. Some worked, some didn't. I made some mistakes. I made some amazing and successful innovations. That's how you learn to be a good mayor. You study your successes and build on them. You learn from your mistakes and grow from that as well. I can tell you that the last 3.5 years, we have moved the city forward with bold strokes in a progressive direction. We are taking Santa Fe into a future that is accessible to all parties. It is open, it is transparent, it is sustainable. It is a place where people can live and work and raise a family, and it's a place where the future will reflect and be as strong as our roots in the past. There are some important historic touch points to remember. 4 years ago when I ran for mayor, the most significant document that we all read was the McHarg Report. If you haven't read it, it is still on the city's website, and it's worth refreshing your memory about the shape the city was in 4 years ago. This report, in effect, was an assessment of the management and fiscal condition of your city. And it found that there was quite likely, or quite possibly, fraud and abuse going on in the city's financial departments. It found that people were doing things like taking down your credit card number on a yellow sticky and passing that around from department to department. We were dwelling in the past. So my commitment, my job assignment as the first full-time mayor was to modernize, professionalize, and streamline the city of Santa Fe so that we could be a modern city government. We did that by hiring a group of very talented and qualified managers. And this is one area where Councilor Vihel-Coppler and I don't see eye to eye. I've hired and we've put together a team of extraordinarily talented managers, including only the second woman city manager in the history of Santa Fe. Something like 75% of the managers in our departments across the board are extremely talented, gifted women managers, and we should all be proud of the work they do every single day on behalf of you and the city. 3 major challenges have really been the part of the city's agenda that colored my first term. First, COVID. We were hit with COVID with no warning. We were flying blind with no instruments. The work we did to bring the city through that process, through that adversity, is something I'm extremely proud of, including passing a mask ordinance and providing vaccine opportunities, vaccine equity for all parts of the city. Secondly, affordable housing. We put $6 million in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. That meant that people across the city would get rent assistance or assistance in buying their first home. We also made it possible in our affordable housing agenda for people to add accessory dwelling units and crack down on short-term rentals. And last, our sustainability agenda has been second to none in this country. Swapping out streetlights will be the equivalent of taking 10,000 cars off our roads, putting solar panels on all city buildings, making our fleet electric. These are steps to drive Santa Fe into a future that is sustainable, it is affordable, and it's a place where our kids can live, grow, and thrive. Thank you.
Ms. Martinez-Johnson?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm standing here today because of you, because of the voice that is very much needed in Santa Fe, so that we can be an example of what a well-run city looks like. I am very thankful for the Santa Fe Chamber of Commerce for hosting this, as well as the Housing Coalition, and of course, I am thankful to have these candidates here so that you can decide in a democratic republic. This is what it's all about, right? I'm going to give you a little bit of information about who I am. Me llamo Alexis Martinez Johnson. I'm a very proud Hispanic woman here in Santa Fe. I live here with my husband of almost 10 years and my 4 beautiful children. As a young girl, I grew up in Roswell. I was not born in Santa Fe, but I carry New Mexico in my heart no matter where I go. You are looking at the very cream of the crop in New Mexico, and I don't say that with any ego. I say it because my zip code was supposed to determine my future, my lifestyle. I was raised by my extended family members. My parents were unable to take care of me. That is the life of many people, not only in Santa Fe, but across New Mexico. I come from humble beginnings. I am one of the 1 or 2% that would become a success because I was never told that there was nothing that I couldn't do, I was told that I could do anything through education and hard work. I had no books at home. My parents had a 4th grade education. I was raised by an immigrant from Mexico who was not kin to me by blood, but he took in an American baby, he paid taxes on this baby, and he made me the woman that I am today, as well as my grandmother. My grandmother was a part of a custodial staff. My grandfather worked in the city parks and recreation department. So when we talk about Santa Fe and the beauty that we want to see, and we want to have the skill and expertise to back that up, I am that candidate. I am the candidate that gets votes across party lines because my door will always be open to the candidates here and all of you. Everybody should have a voice in this community. And I am not here to say, I live in Santa Fe and you should vote for me. I'm a Hispanic woman, vote for me. No, I'm bringing actual skill and expertise and acumen. I went to Vanderbilt University, one of the top 20 universities in this nation. I was schooled in various subject matter as a pre-med student. I not only have a great cultural understanding through lived experience, but I have an international understanding. And I know to move Santa Fe forward, we need someone that can emulate the very essence of what it means to be a New Mexican, and that is respect for all religions, all people, and all parties. My grandmother got ill during my stay at Vanderbilt. I came back to New Mexico. I went to school at New Mexico Tech, and I earned an environmental engineering degree. My platform is about safety. We need to be safe. In this pandemic, I believe in science. I believe that we should all be careful, and the city should be promoting in every way how we can make sure that the citizens are completely safe, and if you're sick from COVID or you're caring for someone, that we provide that to you, some services to help you get through it. Not only do I believe that you should be safe in your person, but we need to be safe in Santa Fe. An elderly man should not be beaten in his home and the contents of his safe taken that we saw last week. We shouldn't have bank robberies. We shouldn't have in various areas throughout the entire town crime. I am bringing to you today voice, skill, cultural awareness, and actual expertise. We have heard that there's going to be a lighting project, and I want you to know that there was no bidding option on this lighting project. In June, Dalkia, the vendor, was sued in Albuquerque for the lights falling down on Central. A transformer blew out at the airport during Christmas. We hired them in August with no bidding process. What city goes into a contract and doesn't have a bidding process? Cronyism, nepotism must stop. We cannot have a defunct city. If you want an environmental steward, if you want someone that can bring our community together, I am asking for your vote. I need your vote if you want a better Santa Fe. Muchísimas gracias.
Great. And thank you all again for being here. Being part of a business community, there's always a lot of challenges in trying to be successful and to really figure out what the Santa Fe business community needs and is looking at. We surveyed over 10,000 people to really come up with the questions that we have tonight. So I figured we might start with a softball. So starting with you, Mayor Weber, if you could wave your magic wand and share your vision of the Midtown campus, what would that vision be?
Thank you, Matt. 2 weeks ago, there was a community engagement effort at the Midtown campus where all of us were invited to go participate. I think I was the only mayoral candidate who actually went. There were some members of the governing body who were there, but I think my rivals did not make that meeting. Miguel Acosta did, with almost a dozen young people from the south side of Santa Fe, and we heard loud and clear what the community wants on the Midtown campus. This is an opportunity for us to address the fundamental needs and aspirations of Santa Fe for our future. It's a campus that has affordable housing, job opportunities, a way to use the Garson Studios for film, video. The cream of the crop gets made here when it comes to film and movies. It's a chance to be sustainable, to have a campus that demonstrates our commitment to wastewater treatment and sustainable energy, renewable energy, right there on the campus. It is a place for arts and culture to have a home. And it also will help trigger the redevelopment of St. Mike's. We know that in the world of business, 700 to 800 new Lanel employees will be at the up end of St. Mike's. The other end will be the Midtown campus. We're going to have, for the first time in 20 years since the St. Mike's overlay was adopted, a redevelopment opportunity to turn that into a boulevard with mixed-use development with the campus as the new centerpiece of Santa Fe. It is the geographic center of the city. It is a huge opportunity for us to express the best values we have for our kids to live, work, play there, get jobs, participate in the economy of the future, and have public spaces that we can all enjoy for the future of the entire community.
Ms. Martinez-Johnson.
Yes, I'd like to see Midtown reflect what we hold dear here in Santa Fe. So I'd like to make sure that we have sustainable measures in the Midtown. Currently, we have some areas such as the Rail Yard Park where we have a collection of rainwater, but that's not going to the land. So, we really need to take care of other areas within the city to make sure that we are sustainable. So my main goal would be to make sure that we had environmental stewardship, number one, but also as a mother with 4 children, I know how important it is to make sure that our children are safe, that they are able to have room to go out and play. But one thing that's innovative that I would like to see there is our film industry. I'd like to see, I know as I walk my dog, some people are renting homes near me, and I'd like to utilize this area to promote economy here for our small businesses, such as having producers, actors, cinematographers, much of the stage people that we have here right now, and thank you for being here. I would like to see all of them utilize this area and make sure that we don't lose various cultural style that we have here in Santa Fe, and that we are respectful, culturally respectful to our very unique city. Thank you.
All right. Councilor Vihil-Coppler.
Thank you. If I could wave a magic wand, I would have started the project off on the right foot. We're not really that far ahead of where we should be in managing this project. When we first started with a process called the RFEI, it was not transparent. The city councilors didn't really get involved, in which procurement doesn't allow that, but when we were able to get more involved, it was not an easy thing for us to do. Nevertheless, we did do public engagement in that first round, hired a master developer who pulled out. I don't think that the RFEI maybe was as descriptive as it should have been, so that we wouldn't have wasted a lot of time doing that. So now we're back at public engagement, back to the first step, and we've begun to be in the land development process. The city staff, now land developers don't do everything at once, but nevertheless, the city process right now is land development. We're short on staff. I don't think we have the expertise to keep it going as much as we should be. We're spending a great deal of money. We do get reports bi-weekly, sometimes not bi-weekly, by-council meeting, sometimes every council meeting, where we never discuss how much this project is costing us. If you open the city audit, you will see that the city of Santa Fe has spent an enormous amount of money, and we are over that budgeted amount now, which is something you should take a look at. I would like to see in Santa Fe, in the Midtown campus, housing that's built for our workforce who can afford it. I would also like to see retail. I would like to see community space. I would like to see gathering spaces where kids and our youth can come together and keep our film industry, make something out of the library that the city and all of us can use. Thank you.
Thank you. And if it's one thing that many of us in the business community learned, especially after the pandemic, is the resiliency of our industries, especially the ability to pivot in a lot of ways. But none of that was as successful as it could have been because of the broadband issue that we have here in Santa Fe. So let's start with you, Ms. Martinez-Johnson. What would be your plan to improve broadband in the greater Santa Fe area? Not so much Santa Fe, but knowing that we work together with our county friends in the greater Santa Fe area.
Well, many of us, as we go throughout Santa Fe, we find that there are spots where, in fact, we don't have access. So I would definitely promote broadband across Santa Fe and the greater Santa Fe in regard to the county. You know, we have fiber optic cables going from Los Alamos to, Albuquerque, Sandia, and also Netflix. So this is something that can happen. I think that we need to work with our federal congressional field as well as our senators. One of our senators received a donation from Comcast, and then that's when we started to really see movement. So we need to make sure that our government is accountable to the taxpayers, and that the taxpayers' money is used in the most efficient manner. This is not our money. It comes from every person's table here. So I'm an individual that I will pay taxes for broadband. I think that's a great resource to have. I think it would fuel our film industry as well as our artists so that they can have what they have in Hollywood and say, hey, when we come to New Mexico, we have the top resources ever. Not only that, but obviously for our children. Education in children is really a priority for me. Thank you.
Sure. Councilor Vihil-Coppler.
Thank you. First of all, I am not an expert in IT and all things IT, but I do know how to put things together. And I would start with the stakeholders, those people who are experts in this field, and those such as the businesses that are here tonight, our schools. How can we, first of all, define the problem? How can we, where are we missing it? How can we put it together for the best use of everyone in Santa Fe, and not only city government, but in our schools and in, maybe more outskirts of Santa Fe, to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to get information that we have. And so I think it involves too working with Santa Fe County. That's a goal of mine. I really think that we always work on things together but separate. And I would encourage those relationships. I think over the years the city hasn't really been as strong an over the fence kind of neighbor. But I truly think that Santa Fe County and the city of Santa Fe working together on this issue of broadband for everybody, I think that we can accomplish more together than separately, because I know they have the same needs that we do. And so first recognizing the importance of broadband, why we need it, and just bringing it with the companies that we need to have here in Santa Fe to help us do that, making sure we get the best price and follow procurement codes and do all the things that we're supposed to do, but implementing it so that everybody gets an opportunity to have the details and the technology that they need when they need it is really important. We can't forget even seniors, those who don't really live in places where they can utilize the technology if it was available. We just have to make sure we're very inclusive of everyone around the city, and that's what I would work toward. Thank you.
Mayor Weber.
Thank you. Thanks for a very good question. As the founder of Fast Company magazine, which is the fastest growing business magazine in the history of the United States, and also widely considered the tech Bible magazines. This is a subject that I feel like I know something about, and I can tell you that we're living in a period of time where access to the internet, high-speed access that is affordable, is not a nice to have, it's a need to have. We saw that with COVID, if we didn't know it already, because it changed the way our kids learned, it changed the way our moms and dads looked for jobs, and it changed the way our companies were able to compete. Thanks to our community development team, we're actually able to stand up a website where any Santa Fe retailer could put up a website and reach a global audience, even when the retail shops were shut down. So from a simple business proposition to an education proposition to the growth of our entrepreneurial economy, high-speed internet and broadband is essential. Now, here's what we're already doing. We've set out to make small micro transfer points so that Wi-Fi is available all over the city at a much better rate. We made Wi-Fi available for free to our students and their parents through extensions at our libraries and at our schools, and in particular, in terms of equity, our trailer park homes on the south side. And right now I can tell you that Rich Brown, our community development director, and I have met with an outside vendor who is very interested in opening up a new broadband business in Santa Fe, bring more competition, bring more broadband to all parts of our community so that everybody who wants to be an entrepreneur can have access to high-speed internet in an affordable price, so that students can study, so that the film industry can thrive. It is an absolute essential part of bringing Santa Fe into the 21st century economy. While we honor and respect our past, we need technology to have jobs for the future.
Great, thank you. And if I could put in a selfless plug-in to get involved with the Chamber, one thing that it allowed many of us as members is one-on-one access with each one of our candidates. And it was great to really get that candid conversation and their perspective of really what's important, what they feel they can make a change in. And one theme across all three of the conversations was really staffing related to our city departments. Can you tell us what your plans and ideas are to suitably staff and train our numerous departments with employees just so that they have, the basic skills to provide, the expected services that a city should provide? And let's start with you, Mayor Weber.
Well, first, I think we have to acknowledge that during COVID, our Santa Fe employees performed incredible work. We had a hiring freeze because of the uncertainty of COVID, and we asked our employees to do amazing efforts, incredible work, and they rose to that occasion, and we should give them a big round of applause for that effort. We have committed, hardworking employees who really deliver every single day. What we're doing to support them is adding technology so that they could work at a distance when their jobs permitted it. We just announced an increase to a $15 an hour minimum wage for city employees, the first in the state to make that commitment, and that is a floor, not a ceiling. Over my term as mayor, we have consistently raised the salaries of our employees from year one to this year, where we instituted a 4% pay increase. We are adding more training opportunities. We just had a hiring fair, and frankly, we had a great turnout where people came to look at the opportunity to work for the city of Santa Fe and serve the people of Santa Fe as an employee. This is part of what it takes to build a strong culture of service. That's why I'm so proud of the managers who are at the top of our departments. They are themselves tireless workers. They take on their jobs 24/7. They are skilled and they are committed, and it is a team of talented individuals who work for you every single day. Going forward, with our economy booming, because we were so strong at the beginning of COVID, we're coming out of it even better than anybody predicted. We are on a hiring tear. I just saw 6 new employees this morning at City Hall. I welcomed into the ranks of our city. Anybody who's watching or listening, if you want a job, working for the city of Santa Fe is a great job. please come apply.
Thank you. All right. Councilor Vihil-Coppler?
Thank you. I'm very happy to answer this question because I have a great deal of experience in HR. And I will tell you this, I have been in the city of Santa Fe. I've set up a whole wonderful HR department, total top notch. They actually, in my day, did management analysis of departments in addition to the HR value. We did hire department directors, bar none, the most qualified in those times, where we experienced one of the most professional city governments this city has ever had. I have great experience in this, and what I will tell you is this. Department directors, division directors, those aren't trainee positions. City manager position is not a trainee position. The mayor position is not a trainee position. And I think you just heard the mayor in his opening statement say he'd made mistakes, he hadn't done this before. Well, I will tell you this. It's important to have background in public administration, public service, and for those department directors and division directors, we will hire only the most experienced, but the most important thing of all is that they know how to manage people. They know how to treat people. They know how to treat them equitably and fairly. So if anybody out there is listening and wants, which I know all of you are, but all of those, if they want to apply for a job when I'm mayor, that's going to be a requirement. And the other requirement is public service, customer service. We need to improve our customer service in the city. I know how to hire people. 2 governors have had me on their HR transition, one on the staff for a transition and one to study the state personnel office because I was chair of the state personnel board. But I have high hopes for this city, and that's what I'm most excited about, is getting a top-notch, quality staff put together that knows how to run a city. Thank you.
Ms. Martinez-Johnson.
Thank you. And if you don't mind, I'm going to stand up here so I can present a little bit better to move my legs. Anyhow, I was raised by a gentleman who worked in the City Parks and Recreation Department. He worked for more than, I'd say, 20 years. And as a little girl, every morning I woke up and I would see him put on his uniform and go to work. And he taught me the value of hard work, dedication, and what you can bring to the table as far as going to work every single day. But he taught me one more important, very crucial element, and that is, after about 20 years, he came home one day and he said, Mija, I'm going to tell you a little story. And I said, okay, and I was just listening, not really understanding where he was sharing something. He was a very quiet man, spoke little words. And he was an irrigation specialist. He dug the ditches. He did the hard labor like many of our workers did. And I know that you heard one of the candidates say that they approve of, or they applaud the top. But I say it comes from the roots. And my grandfather said to me, Mija, today I went into work and I was told by a new manager to go pick up trash. And Mija, I don't think that I can be at this job anymore. And he didn't speak very good English. But there's one thing, and it's called respect. You have to respect the workers. And when you say, right now as a candidate, they are trying to divide us. If you say that as a candidate right now, you have already lost Santa Fe. You've lost the expertise, the acumen, and the heart and love that it requires to be harmonious and effective as a city. Thank you.
And as I mentioned before, we really reached out to our business community to find out what are the challenges and the hurdles that need to be overcome. And being engaged is also another thing that many folks are looking to do. So we've seen a lot of our business community attend a lot of the other forums related to the city council. And on top of our survey and the conversations that many of them have had is related to the zoning code. So the question to you, and we'll start with you, Ms. Martinez-Johnson, is if you could change one thing in our zoning code, what would that be and why related to business success?
Okay, well, our zoning code is put in place by city councilors and various promulgations of law and after discourse. Right now, I would say that my main focus would be to be a part of the cannabis zoning and involve the community. We didn't have a lot of feedback just recently in regard to the zoning of cannabis, and this is an area that's extremely important to me. I am a candidate that supports our small business, but I want to hear from the constituents. And I really think that an effort was not made that where many people were aware of the zoning that is going to occur in Santa Fe. We are on the eve of making our Santa Fe where we have recreational use for marijuana, for cannabis. So we need to make sure that we have adequate zoning, and this is an area where I want to make sure that it's not all in just one area so that business owners are able to have a business. But we also need to be respectful to the community and look at the current laws that we do have in place for controlled substances such as your alcohol. So cannabis is going to be one area that I would be really involved in making sure that we boost our economy. And also, one more important thing, when everybody starts growing cannabis in their backyard, we need to be water conscious. We are in an arid, semi-arid community, and we need to know what kind of water usage this is going to involve and zone appropriately so that we have water in this community. With such an uptick in development and economy, we need to make sure that the water is there for our community, and that would be a priority. So zoning in cannabis would be number one. As far as any previous zoning, that's going to have to go to the constituents through the city council and later promulgated in that manner. Thank you.
Okay. Mayor Weber.
Thanks, Matt. We have a zoning code that is badly out of date. And I've put money in the city's budget so we can refresh it, make it internally consistent, and reflect the changes that have happened in development and in technology. But that's really just cleaning things up. There's really a number of very profound opportunities that we have in front of us right now. And if I only had to pick one, this is what I would say. Historically, in Santa Fe, our zoning areas have been designed to keep development discrete from housing. And what we're seeing now is when there's a housing development, we ask the developer, we require the developer to give us land for a park. What we need to do is rethink that requirement so that it is not for a park, but for community amenities. Because what we want are livable, walkable, sustainable neighborhoods. We want housing where there are bakeries and coffee shops and pharmacies, places you can walk to or take a bike ride to and get to in your community. And so we can't any longer separate the notion that housing is one thing, but a livable, sustainable, walkable neighborhood is something else. We need to see blended development so that everybody lives and works and can shop within their own community. That's something we're seeing happening in cities around the United States, and it is something we can do to our zoning code now to add that sense of place to every neighborhood. As we build housing, we build amenities, and that makes that an even more desirable place for families to live.
Councilor Vihil-Coppler.
Thank you. The Land Development Code, which the mayor referred to, is a major project, and it's not just cleaning up little things. This is a major blueprint for how our city grows and what the rules are going to be within that. And that money was put into the budget 2 fiscal years ago. We're no closer to getting a land development code redone than we were when we put the money in there. And one reason for that is because we have had extremely high turnover in planning and land use. That's just one department. We have about a 38% turnover in this city, and it's not stopping. So, you know, we've had some turnover, that's an issue, but the Land Development Code, let me be clear, is a major blueprint for this city. We are approving things you know, like a patchwork deal where the code isn't clear, so, you know, we hop around. And that, I think, puts staff in a very precarious position, because you don't always get the same opinion from one code enforcement or plan reviewer than the other. And so that is an issue. I would like to see more overlay districts like we have with the Midtown Link. I think that's eases some restrictions for businesses and lets them have a little more creativity. It cuts down on some of the permitting fees, and it has things proceed through planning and land use much more fast. The other item I'd like to see is I would like us to really bite the bullet and consider a little bit higher density allowed, because we're never going to achieve the goals of developing affordable housing if we don't do that. That's really where the rubber meets the road, I think, on affordable housing. It's nice to talk about, but until we make some tough decisions as a governing body, we're not going to get there. And we're going to talk more about that tomorrow. But that is a big roadblock to achieving affordable housing. And so I would say a goal would be to hire most qualified staff in the Planning and Land Use Department. Thank you.
And as an aspirational perspective, and let's start with you, Mayor Weber, what do you think Santa Fe should look like in 20 years?
Oh, Matt, great question. What should Santa Fe look like in 20 years? Well, I think we have unlimited potential, frankly, to be the most sustainable, the most desirable, the most diverse, the most attractive city in America. We have already the foundations for that to happen. We have a Green New Deal that we're implementing for sustainability. We have put money into affordable housing. In the last 3.5 years, we issued permits for almost 2,500 housing units in Santa Fe. In the 10 years before I became mayor, fewer than 2,000 permits were issued in all 10 years combined. So we are making progress on these goals. But 20 years from now, a kid born right now, Councilor Garcia just had a baby. In 20 years, his son will be 20 years old. The Santa Fe that he has to live in ought to be accessible, open, it ought to be welcoming. He ought to be able to afford to live and work here. He ought to have a job that is attractive for him so that he can stay in Santa Fe and make a good living. It ought to be a community that is true to its history, its culture, and represents those values going forward, because there's no other place in the country like Santa Fe when it comes to those values. We should also, I think, understand that the need is to continually challenge ourselves to do better, to invest in things like technology, to invest in entrepreneurship, to let people create their own future based on their education and their own aspirations. So Santa Fe is, I think, on the right track. I think you'll hear in the course of this discussion and tomorrow night, all the building blocks are in place for that future, for that young man and everybody of his age to have a place to live and thrive.
Thank you. And let me just remind everybody to please be polite and cordial as they're taking time to really share their opinions. And I think they deserve to be heard, regardless of what those opinions are. And where you can make your decision is on Election Day. Councilor Vigil-Koppler.
Thank you. You can make your decision starting tomorrow, early voting.
Sure.
Thank you for that. In 20 years, Santa Fe will be financially prosperous. The city government will have our financing. There wouldn't even be a question about audits. We're just on top of stuff. Foundation has been set. We're good to go. In 20 years, we will have our firefighters, our police officers, all of our other employee workers who live out of this city because they can't afford to live here. They will live here because they can afford it here. We will have a presence. We will have a big presence because our workforce will live here, and their being here will contribute to the economy because they will spend their money here, not in the other cities where they live now. In Santa Fe, we will have housing that's affordable for anyone who wants to live here. And our youth will no longer have to move to other big cities to make a dime. We will make a dime here for them. And we will do that with the businesses that you all have set up, because you will be prosperous in an economy like that. That's what I want to see in 20 years, and I will want to have a legacy having left it and created the footprint for any mayors and city managers and department directors who come. I think it's really important with the full-time mayor. We can do that if you have somebody who has the experience that puts it together, and I would like to be that person. Thank you.
Ms. Martinez-Johnson.
How Santa Fe looks in 20 years, I'm concerned with how Santa Fe feels. How does the community feel right now? How can we progress and be progressive and be so progressive that we're actually regressive? That we don't respect other people's voices, their skill, their expertise. How are we going to move forward here in Santa Fe? What occurred downtown with the obelisk, it's not only an object, it's a cultural, spiritual rift in this community. How are we going to mend this? I am concerned about how we feel, and adequate representation, skill, and expertise. I want to see a city that is run and project managed like I have done in the past, where the highest quality personnel is hired, not your best buddy as a city manager, not having hands in the ethics board, in the DA. Santa Fe needs to come together. And guess what? It's going to take every single one of you to make that happen. Our success depends on the success of one of these candidates. Please vote Alexis Martinez-Johnson in the 1 position or the 2. Gracias.
I know another key topic that came up in our survey was public safety. And as I mentioned, being born and raised here, I remember times staying out at middle of the night, when my grandmother, my mom was yelling at me to come inside, as I'm sure many of us do remember. Not a care in the world as a kid growing up here in Santa Fe. My parents, my grandparents never locked their doors. There was never really that fear. And I understand that we're not Albuquerque, but there is a concern. There's a concern from the business community related to police presence. There's a concern in the business community about public safety, and a lot of that really comes from the mayor's office. It comes from the city council and the direction. And knowing that our police chief is going to retire, it kind of sets the foundation to the future of what the police force is going to look like. So in your tenure as the new mayor, can you tell us what your plan is to improve public safety and really improve police presence here in Santa Fe? And we'll start with Councilor Vihil-Coppler.
Thank you. Well, the first thing I do is I take a look at our recruitment process, because we're down 34 to 37 vacancies, and it's really hard to cover a city and provide all of the public safety that we need for a city our size when we don't have the officers. And let's remember, we took maybe 5 or so positions that were vacant police officers and turned them into evidence room technicians. So we are not really fully staffed. So it seems to me that we need to get on board, recruit a police chief who has good management skills, excellent police knowledge, excellent experience, and has managed different types of police programs, or at least wants to do them. I would certainly go, and this is what I told the officers, I would check in with them, find out what they think would make a good police chief. You know, I have this thing, sometimes your worst managers are your best teachers. And I really believe a lot in what employees experience, what officers experience on the street, the kind of support they get, the kind of policing that they think is important and maybe we're not doing. And so I want that feedback from them. Then I will look to hiring a police chief from within or without, it doesn't matter. As long as they know how to manage, they can manage police officers, they have worked with unions, and they know and respect the officers, and they thrive to give police presence overall to a city that has been lacking and demanding it. I'm not sure how they operationally set their shifts and all of that, but I think there's a problem when I did a graveyard shift and there was only 3 officers on the street at that one shift. I know there probably were absences that night, but you can't cover a city our size with only 3 officers. And that was, again, maybe an anomaly, but we need to make sure that kind of thing is planned for and doesn't happen. Thank you.
Ms. Martinez-Johnson.
So right now, our population here in Santa Fe is over 80,000. We have currently 8 to 12 officers for 80,000. So if you're going to say 8 police officers, perhaps at a given moment, that's 10,000 people for one officer. So immediately, we can have officers, more officers in our department. We need to staff our current officers with the training and the skills that are needed. We've had many officer-related shootings. I would look to fund the police force so that they can use non-lethal methods, so that they can have time to de-stress from these very serious situations. Having an officer back out on the road a couple days after a police officer shooting is not sufficient. They're trying to make a community safe. Because we see a lot of outside funding from out of state come in to Santa Fe in these candidacies, you're going to see outside influence, which says police officers, they don't need funding. Yes, they do. Our community needs to have an adequate level of police force. In a week and a half, and I say that because I sigh because it's sad, in a week and a half on Indigenous Day, are we going to have Abuelo over there at the Cross of Martyrs and saying, please don't take down this cross? Is that what it has come to? How sad in a community that we do not feel safe, that mayhem can occur in broad daylight. It is not for the citizens to come out and police. The law enforcement and the policies that go on in city council and the mayor should be separate and not intermingled. There can be collaboration, but there should be no politician who puts their foot into a law enforcement's office and says, this is the way it's going to go. And right now, I'm going to tell you the truth. We don't even know which candidate here is being honest. Are you going to take that chance when we don't even have honesty right now? Which one of these candidates is lying?
Mayor Weber.
Matt, first of all, I think the most important responsibility of the mayor is the safety and security of the city. That's the job the mayor signs up for every single day and takes with him or her every single day home. And it is something I've been addressing as mayor for the last 3.5 years. I started out, if you remember, the day I walked into the mayor's office, Mayor Keller had passed a tax measure in Albuquerque to pay their police officers, and we lost about a dozen police officers out the door because before I became mayor, we had not given our police officers a significant salary increase in years and years. My first budget included a 27% pay increase for our police officers, so we would go from 13 or 14 in the state to about 5 in the state in paying our officers. We implemented a $15,000 horizontal hiring bonus to bring in officers from other jurisdictions, and that helped us because during COVID, the state shut down their training facility and we couldn't get any more police officers. We have been working very hard to recruit, retain, and develop police because that is the core of safety. But there's more to it because we now see that health and safety have to be linked together. That's why we created the Alternative Response Unit that you may all have heard about. It brings a police officer, an EMT, a social worker to go to calls that are not criminal justice calls, they're health calls. They're calls that involve people with mental health or behavioral health issues. And by taking that off the plate of the police, we get it into the hands of social workers. I would point out that last year, Matt, notwithstanding your description, the city of Santa Fe had a 26% decrease in serious crime. So it is absolutely the case that our officers are doing an outstanding job responding to calls, helping people stay safe. Our firefighters are there to help people when they are in need. We have an incredible group of first responders. We have had none of the kinds of issues in other cities because our police and our community are working together to keep each other safe and to respect each other.
And transitioning back of what COVID really shined a light on, especially in our community, was the unnimbleness and the lack of flexibility related to our regulation and permitting process, especially in our hospitality industry and our restaurants. Particularly, a number of them were looking to do outdoor seating, taking up space in some of the roads, and many of them really had the hardship of working with the city and trying to get that approval done. Do you think that today's regulation and permitting process is suitable for businesses? And if not, what changes would you make, knowing what we know now with the struggles, trials, and tribulations that COVID has shown a light on related to our business? And how would you use that experience to eliminate red tape and bureaucracy so our businesses have the ability to thrive coming out of this pandemic? And let's start with you, Mrs. Alexis Martinez-Johnson.
Thank you. Well, I think because you're asking that very question, that means that there's a situation. If you're asking, what can you do better in permitting, then there's obviously a problem. So you're going to hear that, okay, permits are going out the door, but that's not the response that we're getting from a lot of business owners. So there's a bottleneck. There's the inability to follow through. Just like baseball, when you hit the ball, well, you have to connect and see the swing through. What we have going on is permits can be going out, but everybody knows here, if you've done home construction or if there's any other permitting in the restaurant or tourist business, things change, plans change, and you need to go back and have those amended or an addendum put on. And we do not need to have any bottleneck to say, oh, we got you a permit, but then the second process and the third process, there's a bottleneck. We need to make sure that there's follow through, and I have a lot of experience in regard to project management, not only making sure that we have the technology to process these permits that have already been started, but we need to make sure that we have the customer service and at least hire an additional 2 to 3 people. Developers and other individuals, other businesses waiting for months on end and getting frustrated to do business here in Santa Fe, they will move elsewhere. They'll go to Arizona or another state where there is no red tape and there is no bottleneck by government. Government should serve and not be part of the problem. Thank you.
Mayor Weber.
Thanks, Matt. There's no doubt that COVID really required us to become a much more entrepreneurial government. And I know about entrepreneurship since I have started a magazine all about entrepreneurship. I know that time is money for our small businesses, and the ability to be nimble and adaptive in particularly difficult times and then stay that way when we get better is really the hallmark of a good operation. And we saw our small businesses struggling. We saw our restaurants needing assistance. We worked very quickly to make sure that outdoor seating was possible and to allow liquor licenses to extend into those areas which previously were not allowed, so that they could find a way to stay in business. We moved our licensing operation, our business licensing operation, from finance, where you would think about it as a financial operation, to community development, because it's really an economic development part of our city, not a financial standard. We're looking to help people, not just make money off their permits. We created a self-permitting electronic operation, knowing that people couldn't come downtown to City Hall because City Hall wasn't open. We opened up an electronic portal where people could self-license and stay the course. We put $7 million with the county into small mom and pop shops in Santa Fe so we wouldn't lose them during COVID. And I mentioned earlier the platform that the city created so that any retailer in the city could have a retail outlet as an electronic sales opportunity without having to link up with a large Amazon or other global platform. Those are really nimble responses to the city's job to be a good partner with our small mom and pop businesses, because let's face it, they are the heart and soul of our economy. And so we worked with them during COVID, we're coming through COVID, we will continue to find ways to be nimble and to help them succeed as the economy reopens.
Councilor Vihil-Coppler.
Thank you. You know, Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. Jack is not quick in planning and land use where permitting is concerned. This is probably the number one, other than parks being lack of maintenance, weeds all over the place. This is the number one complaint that I get as a city councilor is businesses cannot get their permits out of planning and land use. And they cannot get the phones answered, they cannot get their emails returned. And I think that we do have some staff in there that really wants to do the best they can do, but it's not working. And this permitting system was broken back when I worked for the city. One of the management responsibilities that I assigned myself was to go into planning and land use, go into permitting, and get it fixed. It's not rocket science. People just need to care about how one system goes to the next and goes to the next. But it's really unconscionable that our businesses have to wait so long. The National Association of Realtors funded a study of our planning and land use department. And some of the things they found were that we have out-of-date, antiquated systems for tracking, that there's not really a lot of customer service in there, and that the cost of a small business waiting for a permit per month could be up to $20,000. And a developer, a bigger business, costs per month are $40,000 for project delays. That's not okay. Customer service in the planning and land use department needs to be improved. People need to care about it. They need to understand it. I think some of the workers, the employees work individually compartmentalized, and they don't really know or realize, because there aren't procedures, of how one thing leads to another, and there's no urgency. These are all written down in a document that the mayor got, and we need to fix it, and I will fix it.
Related to permitting, words like economic growth, development, and gentrification were other words that the business community feel are extremely important. And they all want to know what each one of your attitudes is towards those, economic growth, development, and gentrification, and how do they fit into Santa Fe's future. Can we start with you, Councilor Vihil-Coppler?
Okay, thank you. Economic development in our city is extremely important. And, you know, I'll go back to the city's finances. You have to keep track of the money. You have to keep track of what you're doing with it. Are you doing legal things with it? Are you complying with the state auditor's rules? Are you doing all of that? And I'll use the term that, you know, I don't like to use, but it is. We have to get the city's house in order first, and we're not in order. You will see that here. Maybe tomorrow, you'll see that. And until we can offer from our own place a good financial, stable background where our monies are accounted for, your monies, they're not ours, they're yours. We cannot be such a resource in whatever we do. Developing Midtown, which is costing us a big amount of time, big amount of money. We can't help without knowing what kind of finances, where our money is. We can't help others. We can't relay all these funds and parcel them out to help businesses grow. And so I think it's really important first that we do that, because if we don't, we will continue to overspend our budget, which is what we're doing now. You'll see that in the audit. We are grossly overspent. And I don't mean to scare you, but it scares me. It makes me shiver. I'm astounded at what I know today that I didn't really know for sure yesterday. And so that concerns me. If we aren't the premier agency, then we need to get it together so that we can help the economy grow with real money that is accounted for, and where we're fiscally sound, and that we can be the leader to all of the businesses in the Chamber of Commerce in the city of Santa Fe, so that you will look up to us to help you.
Ms. Martinez-Johnson.
Yes. So we currently have gentrification going on. We currently have separations in our city. You're going to be asked on your ballot to approve a property tax. Why are you going to shout that you want affordable housing, like we have heard, and you're going to charge the property owners more money? That seems to be anathema to what we're trying to do. We should have affordable housing for economic development. Are you going to have open heart surgery by someone who makes pacemakers or by someone who is a millionaire? Or do you want a skilled professional that goes to project sites, that makes sure that the city is developing in the proper manner, that we are concerned with our water resource? I can walk into any community in Santa Fe and I am welcomed, because not only do I relate to various groups, puedo hablar en español muy bien, and if you want to talk about gentrification that's occurring, it's time we come together as a community, and I am the candidate that can do that. I am the candidate that already has a transition team ready to go so that we can make sure that we have a better Santa Fe, one that is not gentrified, one that traverses all socioeconomic levels and all cultures. Gracias.
Mayor Weber.
Thank you, Matt. I'm going to actually try to answer your question, and we'll talk about the audit later, because I think there have been a number of misstatements made about the audit tonight. But that's not what you asked about. You asked about how do we manage growth and how do we have a sustainable Santa Fe. There's no doubt that for our young people and their parents to have the future that they want, we need to have continued economic growth and diversification. We have seen that happen in spite of COVID. The construction industry is flourishing. That's one of the reasons I was endorsed by the carpenters. But so has our commitment to sustainability, which is one of the reasons I was endorsed by the Sierra Club. That's the balance we have to strike. We have to have graceful growth so that we have housing, jobs, entrepreneurial opportunities for young people, and sustainable growth so that we don't simply take away the quality of life that makes Santa Fe the best place to live in the United States of America. We're doing that with our water conservation programs. We're doing that with our sustainable energy and our Green New Deal for Santa Fe. We're doing it with a sensible approach to growth, and I put $200,000 into the planning department, much maligned by my colleague, Councilor Vihil-Koppler, who seems to think that the employees in our land use department aren't really doing a good job. They are doing an outstanding job, recognizing that we've gone through COVID. They put out 2,500 permits for new housing in the last 3.5 years, almost 1,000 last year during COVID, using technology that we implemented prior to COVID arriving. So the building blocks are there for a progressive future where we can really grow the economy, diversify the economy, and at the same time maintain the quality of life and the sustainability so that our young people will inherit a Santa Fe that is as excellent to live in as the place we call home right now.
Thank you. Transitioning over to homelessness. And we all know that it's become a growing issue due to a number of reasons. All three of you have mentioned lack of affordable housing to cause a lot of our challenges here in Santa Fe. Economic issues, COVID, poverty, psychological illness, and substance abuse are usually the top 6. In your opinion, and over the next 4 years, what do you feel as mayor will be your major push to keep homelessness from becoming more of a systemic issue here in Santa Fe? And let's start with you, Ms. Martinez-Johnson.
Thank you. Well, this is going to center around one very important aspect, and that is human dignity. We all deserve some human dignity and respect, and these individuals have suffered and continuously suffer extreme trauma. We definitely need to have compassion. However, we do not want to be an attractive haven for people to come from outside of Santa Fe, from Portland, or from where one of our candidates stems from Portland. We do not want to see the Santa Fe version of Portland. We need to make sure that we are compassionate people, that we provide a pathway. I would advocate for a 90-day pathway working with our nonprofits. But I am different than this current administration in that I do not seek to fund into perpetuity transitional housing as a permanent home. I think we need to meet these individuals where they are. Like that you said, some of them have chemical dependency. Some of them are our veterans. And we need to respect individuals and provide them with services to help them. We should never say that hope is lost. I bring to this community the hope and the idea of something better, a city where we do not see the consequences of this administration, and that is platitudes and encampments. If we want to go forward, you all need to have the courage to step out of your preconceived agendas and notions and vote for the individual that can do this job and bring this community together. Thank you.
Mayor Weber.
Thank you, Matt. I take the issue of homelessness and its consequences and its causes incredibly seriously because it really is a matter of human dignity, and it is something where we know in our city people are suffering and they are under a great deal of stress because they don't have a home, or they don't have a place to call their own. And in terms of COVID, it's very hard to shelter in place if you have no shelter to go to. At the same time, homelessness causes stress in our neighborhoods because people look out their windows, they see people who they feel for, but they would like to see them helped. And that's why 3 years ago, I joined a national movement called Built for Zero. Built for Zero is a 75 or so city coalition designed by Roseanne Haggerty, a MacArthur Genius Award winner, to have a systemic approach to dealing with homelessness. And it starts with building a name, building a list of by name individuals in our community who are homeless. So we no longer talk about the homeless. We talk about Joe or Steve or Fred, somebody who we know by name is homeless, and we know why they're homeless, and we know what it would take to get them housed. When COVID hit, we had 90 people living at Pete's Place, staying there every night. COVID hit, that was a cruise ship situation waiting to be a tinderbox of COVID. We stood up an emergency homeless shelter on the Midtown campus where people got food, they got Johnson & Johnson vaccinations, and they got housing. We used $2 million of our CARES Act money to help buy the Santa Fe Suites Hotel. Now, 60 people who were homeless or precariously housed, some of them veterans, have homes. We are on the right track. We need to continue to find housing for people who are homeless. The solution to homelessness is housing.
Councilor Vihil-Coppler.
Thank you. There are many people, many organizations in the city of Santa Fe who work on various phases, various issues related to homelessness, whether it be mental health, rehabilitation, substance abuse, alcohol abuse, any of those. And then certainly we have the shelters that the mayor spoke of, but we need to do more. And what I would like to do is collaborate on a regular basis with all of those organizations that have a part of solving a part of any particular homeless person's life, whether they be Harry, Ann, Sue, or whoever, and create a case management system with this one collaborative, so that we don't have jumping around, so that we use all of these organizations, by the way, which many of whom the city funds, and create that kind of case management, so that we see where we are with solving the homeless problem or not. If you look around Santa Fe, it looks like there really isn't anything being done. I know there are things being done, but we still need to do more, because the homeless do create their own homes. They go into our parks. If they're mentally ill, they walk the streets. They walk in traffic. We had someone carrying a knife, trying to stab an imaginary person across Cerritos Road. This was just a week or two ago. And so then we need to get a handle on this, because when we have this overflow in our parks and in all those other places, it creates more work for our Parks Division to clean up. And it certainly doesn't make our city look very good. So I want a system in place with the organizations that know what they're doing, that talk to each other, that meet each other on a regular basis, and I want the city to fund a case management system with the dollars that we spend or new dollars. We need to work to find a solution, and once and for all, we have to keep working it, because people don't, we have incoming people that create homelessness as well. This has to be a part of our everyday city government where we try to solve these problems.
Thank you. And I really want to thank the audience for being engaged tonight. We have about 2 more questions before we get to our closing. But let's start with the second to last, which one has to relate to tourism. And we all know, especially with the Bloom Fiesta that's going on right now, the success of Fiesta's Spanish market as well as Indian market, that people are willing to go out and travel. People are willing to come to New Mexico, especially Santa Fe, from all over the world, to spend their hard-earned money here on what we have to offer related to business and culture and history and all the beautiful things that Santa Fe stands for. And a lot of that vision should come out of the mayor's office. So what would your vision be over the next 2 years to build off of the success that Santa Fe has had this year from a mayoral perspective? And let's start with you, Mayor.
Well, I agree with you. I think we are the preeminent destination in the country for tourists. We've been ranked number 2 by Condé Nast. We are one of the 100 coolest places on earth, according to Time magazine. And frankly, because of the tough decisions we made early on in COVID, we are seeing Santa Fe rebound economically, culturally. All the things that you said happened this summer really restored Santa Fe's economic, cultural, and social health. We saw Indian market, Spanish market, folk art market, the opera, Zozobra. We have seen an incredible rebound simply because we did the right thing early on, and we have a mask ordinance, we have vaccination across the county. We've done the right thing so people feel safe coming here. We're also investing in our tourist future. So we broke ground a month ago on a downtown restroom, which has been talked about forever, and we're finally building it. We are about to adopt a contract to expand, grow, modernize the airport so that we will continue to be a portal for people to come to Santa Fe and feel welcome. It's also going to be commercially fair at a price point for Santa Feans to fly in and out of our own airport and not go down to Albuquerque. We'll continue to work with our small mom and pop merchants so they benefit when tourists come to town, our hotel and our restaurateurs, and work with the community college to build that talent base, that employment base of people who can take good jobs with good wages and benefits and be able to work in the tourism industry so that their families live and work in Santa Fe. I think our tourism sector is strong and thriving, and we should all be very proud of the fact that people love coming to Santa Fe and they want to come back when COVID is under control. They'll come here first because they love it here.
Councilor Vihil Kaplan.
Thank you. You know, we do have a most beautiful city, and I've seen it just thrive since I've been here forever. I've seen things happen to our city which has really helped us become a destination city. If you look at this city right now, there are so many people who are not very proud and happy with what they see. So I won't let that happen again. You know, we have the danger of not becoming the most wonderful city that tourists want to come to. If they continue to see a plaza that from time to time is unkept, trash cans that are always full of debris. I get these calls. I'm not just making this up. I mean, I get constituent calls a lot about how our city looks. And, you know, I do the best I can to alert the Parks Department, Parks Division, I mean, to go and help us where we need help. But we can't take it for granted. So that being said, I will clean up the city. I said that in my opening statement. That is what we used to do when I worked at the city. We knew how to do it, it was important, and that's why we did it. I would make more use out of the tourism division to go and seek conferences in other states, lure them to Santa Fe, get them to come here, bring their business here. I'm not really sure how often our convention center gets used, but I think it could use a lot more traffic. That's how you lure people. You bring them, they fall in love here, they come back, they visit, they bring their families, and they spend vacations here, they spend money here. That's how we lure them, and I'm not sure that we are making the best use of the employees, our marketing employees, where they are doing that. You know, COVID isn't the reason for everything. And so it's important that we get back to business. We want them to come back here. And so that's what I'll do. I'll make sure we go back to what I've seen in our city work.
Ms. Martinez-Johnson.
Gracias. I look forward to being an ambassador for Santa Fe because I carry Santa Fe in my heart wherever I go. You know, my presence in the community or outside of the community to represent Santa Fe lives within me. This is not an anecdotal situation where I have to learn about cultures, whether that's our Hispanic, our indigenous, or all of the beautiful communities that we have, our Jewish community. I have a great love and respect for everyone here in our community, and I take that with me wherever I go. Santa Fe is not only the plaza. My concern is with everyone that lives here in Santa Fe, that they have a great quality of life, that they are safe in their person when they go out to the park, that their children see the beauty that every one of you are proud of, that we're proud of our community. And it's going to take not only the individuals up here, but it's going to take a partnership with you. Just like one of my favorite presidents, John F. Kennedy, said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. I think we need to work together. If the funding isn't there, we need to work together. We've seen in this administration such a mismanagement of funds. We currently are going to pay an electric company, PNM, we're going to be paying them 100% on the lights that are going to go out when we're going to be using less energy. And then we're going to be paying the vendor Dalkia a bonus to use less energy. Who came up with that deal? We want to be energy efficient, that's for sure. We want to be stewards to our environment, that's for sure. We want to be the premier city, but we do not want to be bankrupt. And we do not want to see on the ballot box property taxes increased for $100 million because of basic project management mismanagement. So I want to thank PNM for being here because all of the ratepayers out there, the tax that we pay in rates for electricity, well, you have paid to host this event as well.
So our final question is one that's near and dear to my heart because I was raised in a family that really was steadfast on education and entrepreneurship and economic development. And my grandmother raised us on always being prepared means never having to say you're sorry. The business community, business owners always have to be prepared because their livelihood, their family's livelihood depend on it. What makes each one of you prepared to be mayor over the next 4 years? And let's start with you, Ms. Martinez-Johnson.
Thank you very much. I differ from the individuals sitting here in that I am not a politician. I'm an engineer, a project manager, someone who hires employees and seeks out the very best qualified individuals. And that means they're going to be of different parties. It doesn't matter your creed, your color, your gender. What matters is that you have a basic respect for the community, that you do the job to the utmost of your abilities, whether you're sweeping floors or you're a project manager. I'm looking to move Santa Fe forward with skill and acumen and oversight, accountability, and transparency. And my hand will be extended to people of all parties and all members in this community. How can you move forward in Santa Fe when you are only moving forward with half of your body? You are talking about families and children, and we deserve a voice too. My family has been here for generations, but that doesn't qualify me to be mayor. What qualifies me is a profound love and respect for these individuals here and all of you to make Santa Fe a better place with the hope and idea that we can do better. And that is the decision that you all will make. Starting tomorrow, voting begins. I thank you for your time. Gracias.
Mayor Weber.
Well, thanks, Matt. I think experience obviously makes a big difference. I have served in the federal government. I've advised governors. I've advised mayors. And now I've spent 3.5 years as your mayor, every single day showing up, doing my very best to meet the challenges and seize the opportunities of our city. So experience is obviously a part of it. But I think it also comes down to values. I think it comes down to the internal GPS that each of us use to make our decisions. And I can tell you that every night I go through a checklist, a compass, to see whether or not this was a good day, whether I showed respect to people, whether I had a sense of proportion, taking things that are important and not tackling things that could be left to somebody else. A sense of gratitude. And we live in the best place in the world, and we ought to take a minute every day and reflect on that and be grateful for the people we have as our friends and our neighbors, our family, our faith-based leaders, our teachers. Gratitude is essential to being mayor. And then the last thing on my little GPS check-in is a sense of purpose. This is a job where purpose is essential. You have to know why you're doing it, why it matters, why it's important to the people you're serving. Because at the end of the day, the mayor works for the people of Santa Fe. And so my purpose is to produce every single day progress towards solving our problems, solutions that work to help people live better lives, and invest in a future so that everybody in our community feels included, respected, and engaged. If you go through that 4-part checklist of gratitude and proportion and purpose and a sense of respect, I think it's been a good day, and I think it's a good day spent as mayor. Those are qualifications that come from within as you assess the opportunities, needs, and challenges that are without.
Councilor Feehill-Coppler.
Thank you. I too have a checklist. And my checklist, having been around here, is I don't check those boxes where I see things not happening. And I have to ask, would you all check those boxes? Is Santa Fe working for you? And so it's not working for me. And that's why I don't check the boxes. That's why I'm running for mayor. There's too many unchecked boxes. We need to get this city back on track. And I feel so strongly about that I want to run for mayor and not my council seat. I am qualified to do this job because I have seen this city as I've been growing up. I've seen what it was, what it offered me as a person growing up here. I have seen and worked for various administrations in city government where it worked. We didn't have the kind of problems that we have today, but we could have, but we had professionals. This is not a trainee position. And I come to you with experience that I have earned and received throughout my career. I have done very important jobs, and they've all been in public service, and I've had a good, great, outstanding career. So much so that two administrations in the city, 2 administrations in the state taxation and revenue department asked me to come back. So if I had a bad experience rating, I wouldn't have been asked to come back. So I know how to do this job. I came from humble beginnings. I care very much about the people who don't have as good of living as perhaps I have made for myself. I paid for my own college education. I've been there, I've done it. And I want this city to go back to where I've seen it prosper, and people in this city who lived here were happy. They had what they needed, and I want that for us. Thank you.
And on behalf of the Chamber and the Housing Action Coalition, we really appreciate you spending your time and your evening with all of us. Mayor Weber, will you start off with your 5 minutes of closing remarks?
Yeah, thank you for being the moderator and for helping organize this night, and we'll do it again tomorrow night with a different moderator but the same candidates. This is a very, very important election, and I couldn't be more delighted to be able to share the stage with my friendly rivals, because I think you see very clearly the differences in how we think, talk, and express our hopes and aspirations for Santa Fe. I don't see the same Santa Fe that Councilor Vigil-Koppler sees. I see a Santa Fe where we're on the right track. We're making investments in affordable housing. We are on a track towards sustainability. We are reaching out to the young people on the south side and building a teen center. We are doing our very best to stand up job opportunities by working with the community college. We're collaborating with the school district, giving every city employee 4 hours of paid leave to be a volunteer with our schools, because those are our kids in those schools. Doesn't matter whether they're in a school or over a weekend, those are Santa Fe's kids. We're investing in their future with the school district. I think we are doing a great job in Santa Fe around facing the challenges of a deep global pandemic. Councilor Vigil-Koppler says COVID isn't the reason for everything. Well, I suppose if I voted against a mask ordinance, I'd say that too. But the truth is, COVID has transformed everything in our lives. It's cost people their lives and their livelihoods. It's cost people their businesses that they worked their entire lives to build and grow. And while we put $7 million out on the street to help those mom and pop businesses, we lost too many. We've got to help them recover going forward. This community rallied around COVID like no other place in America. There is no place in this country that has put up the record of assistance and help and support. We prayed together, we stood together, we worked together, we helped each other. That's the spirit of Santa Fe that I see every single day. That's the spirit that's going to get us the future we want for our kids and our young people. You know, the other part about being mayor is you have to be truthful. You have to be honest. So when somebody like Councilor Vigil-Koppler calls the city budget fiscally irresponsible and then votes for it, the question is, which side of that issue are you really on? When you vote against the street light exchange program after you voted for it, the question is, which side of that issue are you really on? And the audit, my friends, which was released today, is very different than the audits that happened in the early 1980s when Councilor Vigil-Koppler was working in the personnel office, and we saw qualified audits year after year, meaning they weren't clean. This year we have a clean audit, and because of the recovery that we're seeing, we are not only fiscally sound, we have money to put into programs so that we can do the work you talked about, Matt, hiring people, bringing them on, staffing up, and bringing the city back into the quality of life that we had before COVID. I am incredibly optimistic about the future of this city. We have a community that is together, strong, It is careful and compassionate for each other's lives. It is a city guided by core values that are deep, historic, and cannot be changed. And that's the joy every single day of being mayor of this city. The chance to work with people in all parts of our community, to offer opportunities, to meet our challenges, to produce a quality of life that is second to none. We're not going back to the way it was. We're going forward to a progressive vision of Santa Fe the way it can be, the way it has to be. You know, one of my opponents quoted John Kennedy just a minute ago. There's a Bobby Kennedy quote that's even better. Bobby Kennedy said, "Some people look at the way things are and ask why. I look at the way things can be and ask why not." That's my agenda for a second term, and I'm asking for your support so we can build the future for our families, our kids, our employees, our workers. Everyone who is part of the Santa Fe family has a place in our future. That's what I'm running for, and I'm asking for a progressive vote from every single one of you to take us into the future, not back to the past. Thank you.
Councilor Vigil Koppler.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't really have a quote, but I know you've heard this saying, and that is making the same decision again and again and expecting different results. You have already an example of what has happened in the last 4 years, or almost 4 years. If you want those kind of results, I would say vote for this person, because you won't get different results. And some of the I think the false statements that he's making is the same man I've worked with for the last 3.5 years. It's the same person. And when he says that I voted against the mask ordinance and translates that into I'm against masks, is terribly, terribly wrong, misrepresented. And it doesn't surprise me, because masks saved my life when I had to wear them in a quarantine room in the 1990s. I know the value of masks. What I voted for was erroneous, unenforceable resolution where there were so many holes in it that it pretty much didn't really amount to a whole lot. It could have been better, but I had no choice. Either vote for something that has been ineffectual or not. And so I voted no. But I wear my mask. I have nothing against masks. I have nothing against vaccines. Nothing. I am a full soldier when it comes to that, because my life was saved in the 90s by wearing masks. And so, the other thing that he said was about streetlights, and streetlights, yeah, I voted for streetlights. I think it's important. I think we need streetlights. I think we needed to get them all on the same path, and I think all of the lumens and all the things we talked about are fine. Yes, I voted for it. But the one thing that didn't come up was there was a conflict of interest there with Dalkia. And so there was a little bit of mistrust on the council, and I wasn't the only one who voted against it, because there was not enough arm's length between the consultant and the city contractors. So that's why I voted against it, because they didn't want to use an outside contractor because it would cost $200,000. Well, I think it's important to have arm's length. But I will tell you this, Santa Fe needs a change. Santa Fe desperately needs a change. And we need to develop more trust. We need to bring trust back. And again, how I will do that, I will hire the most qualified people to run this city. There will be no more backroom deals. There will be no more under the table. There will be a city council that I will work with to make the decisions and not cast away any one of them in particular because they don't follow my agenda. We used to win the GASB Awards. This is a governmental accounting standards board. The City of Santa Fe Finance Department was asked to travel out of state to go and accept these awards. They were beautiful. They were crystal type trophies. Year after year after year, we would go and pick up those awards because we handed in not late audits, on-time audits, perfectly clean audits. I don't know what he was talking about earlier because I was there, I know. And those are trophies that I want to win again. We were so proud of those. We did our job. That's why the city prospers. It's all about the money. And the audit, go look for yourself. It's not a clean audit. I don't know. We have repeated findings in there. We have 10 qualified findings. Those qualified findings means we are at risk as a city from losing grant money. That's serious. We have 12 repeated findings in that audit. Go take a look for yourself. Finally, it's out. And I think we need to do something about it. I will do something about it. I have worked with money. I've worked with fiscal departments. Again, I can't do it all by myself. I will hire the best people to run our city. And so, you know, I think we need to come back to a flourishing economy. We need all of you to help us do that. And I would like to earn your trust. I would like to bring trust back to the city. And I want to be your mayor because I am very confident that I can do this job. It's not a trainee position. I've held high-level jobs before. I've worked for 2 governors who trusted me to do many things. And so I have a track record, and I'm willing to do that. And that's what I want to do. And I think you will see that when I am mayor, you'll see a different city. I have no doubt about that. And so I'm asking for your vote. Go to joanneforsantafe.com. You'll learn some more about my positions than what the questions were tonight. But I really thank you for your attention to this. And I thank you, Matt, for your emceeing. And I also thank the Chamber of Commerce. And I look forward to another night tomorrow. Thank you.
Ms. Martinez-Johnson.
Muchísimas gracias, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention in this very crucial election. Again, my name is Alexis Martinez-Johnson. Please consider me, I ask humbly for your vote in the number 1 or 2 position. I want to make something very clear right off the bat, 2 things that we have just heard. Wearing a mask makes sense in close proximity situations. I have my vaccine. We want to be a safe community. So I want to get that out there. That was discussed. Secondly, the lights that are going to be going up, all of you should have questions about that. A typical municipal situation that would occur, we would have bids. All cities do this. You get bids in so that you can make sure that they have a safety record. I was in charge of the safety for the firm that I worked in at Larson Associates, Environmental Consultants. Safety is number 1. During the tenure of this administration, we had a death. We actually had a death because someone was installing a light fixture, as you can see above your head. This is not an attack on any one of these individuals' character or dignity. I'm talking about real life. Are you going to take the chance with dishonesty? Are you going to take the chance with incompetence? This poor fellow lost his life because the skill was not there to say, we have a safety protocol and this is checked. You have proper electricians. We have a vendor, Dalkia, who caused a transformer to explode because they used a lesser gauge wiring in that transformer because it was cheaper. And that is who we have hired with no bidding process. Why didn't we have a bidding process? Because Albuquerque used them, so it's okay for us? Albuquerque has not reported any savings in those lights. The lights fell down on Central, and we hired them. That happened in June. We hired them in August. This is reality. This is the future of your safety and our safety. So can no one tell me why we didn't have an open bidding process and any concerns that were voiced were shut down? It's time that cherry-picking people to fill positions because they're your friends or because you want that particular vendor, that needs to go. I do not promote cronyism or nepotism. You are voting for me because I have a heart for Santa Fe and because I have the skill to get the job done, to clean up our parks, to be respectful to our homeless, put them through a pathway, to make sure that a life is not lost due to ineptitude. There is cronyism that goes on here, and I didn't know how entrenched it was until I filed an ethics complaint. And I found out one of the lawyers on the board, they work for the lawyer that represents the incumbent. And another person on that ethics board donated to Representative Brian Egolf. It's time that you ask yourself, how much is your vote worth? And are you going to take the chance on an administration where both of these individuals have not got it done? How can you be a mayor when you cannot work with city council? And how can you really serve platitudes to us when there has been a distortion of reality? I want to ask the question, has the president of the city union been fired today? So when you're going to talk about respect, and you're going to talk about there's no intermingling in law enforcement, well, there's a price to pay if you're a voice. And I have the courage to be that voice because I don't have anyone to pay. I don't have buddies to pay, and I don't have an onslaught of outside donors to make me go one way or the other. You have two candidates here that are forgetting one important thing, and that is this government belongs to the people, by the people, and for the people. It does not belong to any one individual or sides that says, we're going to do it my way. You make the decision. My name is Alexis Martinez Johnson. Por favor, put me in the number 1 or 2 position. Muchísimas gracias.
Let's hear it for all our candidates tonight, and I want to thank you all for taking the time. I think we are all here knowing that Santa Fe is important for us, and there's a lot of challenges that we see related to the business side of the community and the housing side of the community, and that's why we broke it up into 2 different conversations. We welcome you all to please attend tomorrow to hear that side of the discussion, because on top of what we talked about this evening is that housing aspect. And again, like all 3 of them have said, your voice can be heard when you go out and vote. So I encourage you, all 3 of them encourage you, Michael and Bridget encourage you, please let your voice be heard starting tomorrow, and then at the latest on November 2nd. I want to thank you all very much for being engaged. I want to thank you 3 for being candid and participatory and for being here this evening. And thank you, Bridget and Michael, for allowing me to do this. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. That concludes our program. And I also would like to once again thank Alexis, Mayor, Councilor. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us. It was a great, great conversation. Matthew, thank you for moderating this evening. And once again, I want to remind everyone, early voting begins tomorrow. As you know, Santa Fe, New Mexico is only one of 2 cities in the entire state that participates in ranked choice voting. And the Santa Fe Chamber of Commerce has an event that's taking place Wednesday, October 6th at 8 a.m. It's going to be at the Courtyard by Marriott, free to attend, and you get the opportunity to learn about ranked choice voting. And you'll even get the opportunity to vote on some breakfast entrees that morning. So I encourage you, come out, learn about ranked choice voting. Also, join us on Wednesday evening, October 6th, for a city councilor candidate conversation. We're going to be speaking with District 3, and that's going to be taking place once again Wednesday, October 6th at Santa Fe Spirits Distillery. And then we will be meeting with city councilor candidates District 2 on October 14th at the Montecito. Visit the Santa Fe Chamber of Commerce website to register for all these upcoming events. Michael, you want to add anything?
I just want to say thank you again to everyone that made it out, and thank you to all the candidates, and Matthew, thank you for an excellent moderation. And don't forget to come back tomorrow night to talk housing and nothing but housing. Thank you.